Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and I'm joined by Sam Proof once again, so it's great to have him back. Today on the show we're talking all about content repurposing and remixing and what we can do to maybe give our content a bit of a longer shelf life out in the world. But we are going out live to all the various places, so if you are watching live, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and hashtag Team Live or hashtag Team Replay if you're watching later on. But Sam, how are you going? I know there's been a lot going on, but how are you?
Good. I'm almost feel normal, right? Like, kind of like at the last minute, like 2 hours ago, my modem showed up and it was a self-install. So fingers crossed that this is any good whatsoever. Yeah, so it's weird. You know, we finally got a place. We're kind of settling in, and now we just build out from here. I don't know. I set up my studio today, so I'm back. I hate this. So I may, like, the other option is to flip it around and it's just like a sliding closet. But I'm like, at least it'll be vertical lines instead of weird angles. But yeah, other than that, you know, we're getting there.
I mean, it's great that you're in a new place, and I saw you do a bit of live streaming yesterday, putting the bed together, which I have a lot of skills, but the assembling of furniture is a nightmare. Like I will do anything to avoid that. So it was good to see that you got it together in the end. But let's check in with the chat. Ender Trading saying hello to everybody. I feel like Roy's already calling us out. Will you repurpose this live stream?
For sure.
If I have time, I will. So we'll talk about that.
I mean, it will definitely become a podcast.
Well. Yes, I mean, that's true. And Saeed is saying hello from Germany and noting that you're back. And just saying hello to each other. So, yes, let's talk all about it.
Hey, Dan.
There we go. It's a message from a friend of Sam's there. Okay, awesome. So I must admit, I'm just going to level with everybody because I told Sam I didn't want to get out of bed this morning. So I've literally rolled out of bed like 15 minutes before we went live. So I really feel quite croaky this morning and I'm not really sure why, but it's okay. We'll get through it. So today we are talking about content repurposing. And I guess, you know, in some ways, I think it's really, really common for content creators to feel like they always need to be creating the new thing. They always need new projects. And that's great to a point, but there does come a point where it can just lead to burnout. So I guess in some ways, and I was reflecting on this during the week, like as an introvert, it takes me a lot of energy to even show up to the camera and the microphone most days. So I really want to make sure whatever I can do, I can get the biggest bang for my buck out of that. And I know, Sam, obviously you're very busy as well. So I guess before we start getting into these 4 R's, how do you think about content repurposing generally, Sam?
I mean, you know, I'm all for it. And I think really if you're gonna like have to choose between I'm gonna make X amount of new content versus I'm gonna take one solid piece of content and create X amount of things from it, I would lean in on the repurposing because you're gonna get more bang for your buck provided that initial source content is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I like this point that Saeed is making. Purposing comes before repurposing. So I think it is a good idea to sort of reflect on your goals and why you're doing something before you get started, because that way it'll help you know if you've reached them. And I must admit, that does feel like a place I constantly fall over, because I just put things out there in the interests of perhaps building the presentation muscle, getting the practice in, potentially building an audience. And I guess those are goals in and of themselves. But again, I think it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go into this kind of thing, it's like there is that sort of early on, like throw as much stuff out as you can possibly, you know, do that until you actually can do it well and do it informed and all of that sort of thing. And once you kind of, not to use a million buzzwords from those gurus, but once you know your value prop and what it is your audience is looking for from you, I think that's when the repurposing really becomes a strong thing to utilize. Because you're gonna make a lot of misses. You're going to throw a lot of stuff up that doesn't stick to the wall, you know? So obviously you're not going to repurpose that, you know, 2-minute video of like, hey, I built this bed. I don't do a DIY channel, but I did it last night on my live stream. I'm not going to repurpose that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is worth keeping in mind, because not everything we do, although it's funny, talking about assembling furniture, they do refer to this as the IKEA effect, the idea that because you've touched something, it is inherently more valuable than perhaps it really is in reality. So there is that danger. But again, I was reflecting on this quite a lot during the week, and I guess in some ways, as someone who's much more comfortable editing and writing and doing all this stuff outside of the camera, if I've already got some material to work with, I really love that. And I guess the thing that I've been seeing on LinkedIn especially is they have these LinkedIn audio event rooms. And in some ways, like, people can show up, anyone in the audience can put their hand up and be brought onto the virtual stage to talk. But the thing about those is they're not being recorded by LinkedIn. So if you're not there at the time, like, they just cease to exist practically after they've happened. And I've been on a couple recently, and I've just got into the habit of recording them because I try to record everything. Just to you know, on the off chance I say something intelligent that might be worth sharing somewhere else. Okay, I just want to check with these comments. Repurposing to a level, it's just too easy to make shorts. Better than hacking a long 16:9 video. Okay. I guess, yeah, and I guess that is something we will need to.
But yeah,
we will need to touch on that as we continue. And it's funny, that's one thing I didn't really reflect on during the week, but I guess it's worth exploring. Okay, so let's talk about these 4 R's. And again, we've got reframe, remix, repackage, and resurface. And this is sort of the framework with which we're going to have today's conversation. But if you've got any ideas, any comments, any thoughts, throw them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and reflect on those as well. But let's start with reframing. And I think, for me, in some ways, this is often the most interesting part of this, because I think it's really, like, it's an opportunity to go and look at something from a different vantage point, from a different angle, and just see if you can't sort of find something else to explore in the content. I think a lot of the time we make this content, we watch it, we look at it at a really shallow surface level idea and sort of just stay there. And it's funny, it's an example I've been using for years and years at this point. But before Sam and I started doing this show, I interviewed him for a series of videos, which, to be really honest with you, I don't think I ultimately released all of them. But the first one, Sam, you know, I asked Sam what his advice was for people that were wanting to start live streaming. And he basically said, just get started, just turn on the camera, just turn on the microphone. Yep. And I sort of used that example, firstly, as a bit of encouragement, as a bit of inspiration. But I also went back and sort of repurposed that and actually showed you the different steps of, you know, how to do those things in OBS Studio, or how to do those things in Restream, or, you know, all these different options. So I think there are all kinds of opportunities to sort of look at existing content and take it from another angle. And I know, especially on platforms like TikTok, where there's a lot of juxtaposition between audio and video, and that, you know, if you take something and you apply different audio to it, it can have a completely different meaning. So yeah. I am curious, Sam, do you have any thoughts on ways of reframing, or have you used it? Has it been beneficial, or is it something you don't do a lot of?
I mean, I would say I don't do a lot of it, but what I do use it is in that sort of TikTok context where I have, you know, a variety of sort of sounds that I reutilize, or templates that I reutilize, and you know, even clips that I've reused for, you know, to pair up with different sounds and things like that. So yeah, I do have a small sort of working area or sandbox that kind of falls into this range, but I don't know that I have like really a good workflow on it yet, or thought out plan to it. But yeah, I think sort of having those elements of like, almost, here's my library of basically B-roll that I can just go to. And like, I know these are good things that I can reuse whenever a new fun trending sound comes out, or like the flip side of that is, here's a folder of my own sounds, like good sound bites that I can use for different things. So yeah, I think, within reframing comes also building that content library, and like having not just the mental recall, but maybe a good organization to find those things as well. Spreadsheets. Yeah.
And Sam does love a spreadsheet. I can tell you that for nothing. But again, like that is a great point, a good call out. So in terms of the contents, like at the end of the day, we want to have easy access to be able to find the things that we've already created, because again, starting from something that's already recorded, already available, is so much easier than starting from scratch. And
yeah,
when we talk about this, and we've done an entire show on building a content library in the past, but a lot of it is really, how are you arranging your folder structures? How are you naming things? Do you have conventions for this sort of thing? Is it actually going to be easy enough to find? One of the things I do love, and I feel like I've been talking about Camtasia a lot lately, is it does have this library feature built into it. So I can take clips out of anything and just put it inside of Camtasia and then start a new project and drag them in together. But I guess thematically, like in terms of reframing this content, and like I think if you play with extremes, it can be a really interesting way of exploring this idea in particular. So if you've said something really specific, like if you're showing somebody how to do something in software, for example, maybe if you take a step back and think about it more abstractly, or maybe a global sort of approach to it, and again exploring those themes and maybe why versus how. And I know this is as Sam sort of alluded to, like it's something that probably interests me a lot more than it does him, but I just find it kind of fascinating, because every now and then I will share something and people will latch onto different parts of it, and the thing that I thought was interesting won't necessarily be the thing the audience finds interesting. And when they give you that feedback, I guess it's an opportunity to come back and sort of explore it even further. Okay, I just want to look at this comment from Saeed. I'm often happy if I can get 1 5 to 10 minute channel chunk of content out of my 1 to 2 hour workshops to repurpose. Better than nothing. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Like, and Tatiana Teachers did a live stream with Tanya Smith yesterday, and again, I don't know, it's probably me being an introvert thing, but talking about doing these live sessions for 5 or 6 hours, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like, I've got to have structure. If I'm on camera for longer than an hour, I kind of need a nap, if I'm being honest. And I'm barely sufficiently caffeinated as it is this morning, so we'll see how we go. But yes, I guess, that's the thing. You do need to review your content. You do need to look for those key moments. I know there are AI tools that do this. I feel like Roy reported that his experiences recently with them have been a little hit and miss. So yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on. And hello to Strong the Third, who's joining us from the huddle as well today.
To address that really quick before we get into Dan's comment, I think to talk about what Roy, or if that was him, the AI stuff is like, as far as clipping and converting and stuff like that, it's okay. But as I've said in the past, the biggest issue with sort of those AI tools that are going to take your 2-hour stream, which you're going to be paying for, and converting it into 20 or 30 like shorts clips, vertical clips, is that it's just going to do a trim, right? It's just going to find a start and a stop time, and it's just a simple soundbite. And for the most part, it's going to miss the mark on it. And when we actually talk about some of these other tabs up here, when you really want to do this right, there needs to be some amount of editing to it, because a real video, whether it's a short video or a like long form VOD on YouTube, should start with a strong hook. And for the most part, the AI tools just miss the mark on that. Okay. Dan's comment is a really good segue out of Saeed's, which is what I wanted to say when he was saying that he only gets, like one 5 to 10 minute chunk out of a 2-hour workshop, which feels like not enough. And this is the solution, which Dan says is virtually a podcast. Is it better to plan all this prior to podcasting, planning to the extent that you can, so you're getting more out of your 1 to 2 hour session? Exactly. And that is what I wanted to say. And then you popped that up and I was like, perfect. And that's why we have these tabs that, if you're watching our show live, video, not audio, you'll see we have tabs. So we've already established at least 4 portions that hopefully we can grab, another 5-minute chunk from. But yeah, when you look at repurposing content, going into that content with not like a script, but some strong bullet points, I think is a really good way to help you in that repurposing. And also, a lot of it is, whether or not you can do this as a single person or you need a crew for this, but a lot of this, it's being able to find those moments while they're happening live and note them. So that can be very hard. If you're a single streamer and you're acting as host and OBS operator and, you're trying to interact with the chat, these things are happening as they're happening, but also having the foresight to like hit a button to like mark the time down can be a bit too much. So like having that other person. Yeah, go ahead.
I must say I'm not across the detail, but I'm told that chapter markers are coming to upcoming release of OBS Studio. So that'll be really interesting. I guess the only thing I would say is, and again, different people like structure, different people like just to ad-lib it. Like you've just got to find out what works for you. But I was just going to say the thing I think, Saeed's happy with the 5 to 10 minute segment, but I think in some ways, Saeed's problem is that he has years of content. So I guess he's not making 20 clips out of every single workshop he's done. But again, Saeed writes, the thing about planning is I have live audiences that ask questions, etc. on Zoom. So, and then he quotes Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I guess that's the other thing too. Sometimes you will have a great moment in a live conversation you can clip out. Other times it'll be too long or you'll trip over your words. And at that point, just re-record it. Like it's not usually that difficult. Yeah. And again, if you go into the archives, we had our 59-second challenge, which was sort of one way of recording shorts with the Atom vertical plugin in OBS Studio. And we had a bit of fun with that. But again, like speaking in those kinds of pithy sound bites is its own little skill. So, something you probably need to practice.
Yeah, it could be a bit much to go into, a 2-hour live stream knowing like, here's 20 sound bites I've prepared for myself. You're not going to do that most likely. But in a situation like Saeed has here, where it isn't something you can pre-plan, having some sort of way to isolate these things quickly in the post, in the edit, is really helpful. Like putting the comment on screen so you can visually just find it and be like, great, that was that comment about why this thing happened. I wanted that. That's perfect. Here's my concise clip. For the kitten cam, I do a very similar thing. But I also have a Stream Deck button that does a marker so that I get a timestamp and I know where that thing happened. And it throws it into like my Discord so I can see it later. And just, there's a million ways you can plan, whether it's improv content or, something that you are just going to be talking about that is pre-planned. So yeah, I think it's just having those abilities to make things faster in the post.
Absolutely. Okay. So, it's Sam obviously hasn't been here too much lately for obvious reasons. If you know. But we're running a little bit late, so I'm going to throw to our first promo, and we'll be back in just a moment.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. he loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the count. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a clip from Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. And just want to check in with the chat before we continue. Hi to CG, who's joining us. Great to have your company. I'm going to switch our tabs because I forgot to do that during... We are so rusty, it's ridiculous. But if you want to entertain this question while I do that, Sam, that would be awesome.
Enda asks, is Opus Chip, I assume this is the Opus AI bot, is Opus Chip leading to lazy content? It's definitely obvious to people who have used the app where it's been made. I think that is a fact. I also think that this part where it's definitely obvious to people who have used it, it's sort of that Canva effect of like people are starting to recognize the templates, right? It only has about a dozen sort of pre-created layouts and captions. So it becomes very obvious when there's a single black and white word flashing in the middle of your screen that was created with Opus. And yeah, I think people are going to start sort of getting a burnout for that. And really, I think my answer to that, I know John is not a fan of the AI at all. He would just get rid of it all. I think as long as it's not purely 100% generative AI, because most of that is trash, there is something to be said for it. But there is a lot of this sort of lazy usage to this tool where it's just whatever the tool has done is 100% perfect and I'm putting that out there. It's not. It's garbage. But it is good enough to like find those clippable moments for you, more or less. Personally, I like CapCut. CapCut has the same tool built in, plus you can then turn it into a project, go in, edit things, move things around, so it is not just a single soundbite, but you have an opportunity to hit your mic, you have a strong hook at the beginning, and you can create a template that people haven't seen and aren't, associating with 5 other content creators, and it is your own thing. So yeah, I would lean in more on the CapCut side of things.
And I must admit, I'm not across Opus Clip, and maybe Roy can tell us if he's still lurking in the chat. But in some ways, like it's one thing for the AI tools to find what it thinks is a worthwhile clip, but what I kind of wonder is, can you adjust the start and end times? Because I think that's probably going to be the most important thing, because it doesn't necessarily understand the context of what is being said. So
and some of them do
I do a lot of this manually in just video editing software, and I just watch the whole thing, and I put chapter markers at start and stop moments that I think are worth repurposing later. And admittedly, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, and that's the kind of the reason why I don't do it every single week.
I think. No, okay. I was going to say, I think it is helpful to use those things to like go into an hour-long, 2-hour-long, live stream or VOD and find some moments and then note down those times, find it yourself and turn it into a project. Because once you've done that, repurposing it later is going to be easier. Because once it's just this clip with burned in captions, there's, it is what it is. What are you going to do with it? You have it. And I guess you could completely cover it with B-roll later, and there you repurpose it again. But if you've turned it into its own project and the captions are their own layer, you can make this thing like, 500 ways to the sun and like be reusing it time and time again and having it look different and be different and like reorganizing it. So yeah, that's my statement.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about content repurposing. Let's talk about remixing stuff. And I must admit, I don't know if anybody in the audience feels the same way as I do, and I suspect they may not. But As a music fan, I'm really quite obsessive about certain bands and individuals, and I don't just listen to greatest hits albums. I don't just listen to their albums. I scour for singles and B-sides and remixes and live tracks. And I in some ways I find that just makes my appreciation of their music it brings different sensibilities, I guess, to that. And I guess in some ways, I like to think about what have I already produced and how can I sort of switch it up and maybe rework it in a different way. And especially, I guess, if we're framing this as a video conversation, we've already sort of, I guess, spoken about the TikTok trending sound type of things. But, how can you sort of combine elements that you've already recorded or bring them together? And again, Sam sort of mentioned the whole B-roll idea, and I think that's where this can get really interesting because you can be a talking head, but then you can sort of demonstrate something, and then you can sort of maybe have some things that speak to the benefits and the features of the thing that you're discussing. So again, Sam, I know you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of editing outside of your client work, but are there particular ideas that you've explored in terms of remixing content in the past?
I can't think of anything that I've done in the past, but I've actually been planning on this for like since I moved in here. I've been like, since we don't have the kitten cam, repurposing is pretty much what I need to be focusing on right now for Qt Avalanche. And so I've been thinking about ways to do this, and sort of two of the things I'm looking at doing is taking sort of these chats that Amanda and I have done, or interviews we've done for podcasts and things like that, kind of along the lines of what Saeed was talking about, where you're addressing comments and questions live. And I've already clipped out a bunch of those just as clips, but now I'm going to take those and really try and clear up the audio, because we were using just a webcam for audio, so they're not great. But then also just adding B-roll on top of that to make them more sort of edutainment-y, like, educational, and less about it's people having a chat on a stream on a potato camera, and, maybe adding some quality to it. So that is one of the things that I was looking at doing. And I have no idea what the other thing I was thinking anymore. But a thing that did occur to me when you were setting all of this up is like, it doesn't have to be educational and like that style of valuable. Like one of the sort of most popular things that is time and time again a viral hit is just supercuts, which is just, you take that one stupid moment that happens every damn time and you make just a long, video of, oh, Sam hit the mic again and again and again, and whatever it is, or like the coughing supercut, or every time they say whatever it is. So yeah, there's a lot of comedic usage that can be remixed as well.
It's funny you mentioned that, because literally last night I watched a video that was titled 32 Years of Winter, and it was literally a compilation of Tori Amos performing this song that she released in 1992. And it was just a whole bunch of live performances strung over 32 years. Yeah. And like a line or two of from 1991 to 92, 93. And it was really interesting as something to show a progression. So, I mean, sometimes it is just a matter of, speeding up old footage, doing time-lapse things. But I think I take a lot of my cues from documentary makers. And again, as someone who's very comfortable in the video editing software and Camtasia that I use, like, I can bring all these elements in, I can narrate over things, I can add music, I can add sound effects. And it's just, I think it's, in some ways, it's just about bringing those things together. And I think it's great, especially if you can sort of combine it with that idea of reframing the content, because I think there are always depths that can be explored further. But we're going to come back and we're going to talk about actually repackaging. And again, something that I was not particularly excited about talking about, but I know Sam is interested in talking about, is thumbnails and what YouTube has done recently. So
Oh, yeah.
we're going to come back and have that. I'll have a nervous breakdown and Sam will geek out. It'll be amazing. So stay tuned for that one. I'm going to press this button here.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's a clip from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, the podcast all about showcasing your expertise through content creation, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. But today on the video and live streaming show, we're talking all about repurposing content. And before we go into the thing that I think a lot of people in our audience will be excited to geek out about with Sam, I did want to just take a step back and it always hurts people's feelings when I say things like this, but I just want to be realistic. There are podcasters that are like, podcasting is the only thing, and there are video makers that are like, video is the only thing, and there are readers that are like, blog articles are the only thing. And the truth is, people have different preferences when it comes to content consumption. And I think there is a very real danger of you siloing yourself away in one of these mediums. And it's not to say that you can't or won't have success there, but I worry that you're perhaps limiting your reach quite a lot. And I know, especially on YouTube, there's this idea that, you know, you don't give away the secret of your content. You create intrigue with the title and the thumbnail, and people have to click through and watch the video. But like on a lot of social media platforms, I will just give you the answer in the text that accompanies a video, because I figure you may not be in a position to watch this right now, or it may be more convenient for you to scan the text. So I guess I just want to say, like, you know, if you can move between mediums, and it could be just taking something and transcribing it and maybe editing it a little bit to put it into a newsletter article, or, you know, even an ebook potentially, you know, if you can sort of convert the video to audio. And again, that's something Sam does with this show. So I guess, do you want to touch on that briefly, and then we'll get into all the thumbnail drama?
I mean, I think you pretty much said it all, but like, yeah, I think the sort of elephant in the room that we really didn't say is like, what are all of the possible, you know, repurposings that can be done from a piece of content, specifically if we're talking about live streaming. So you have your live stream, you can rerun that live stream, you can rebroadcast it on another platform. You can turn it into a long form VOD. You can clip those into you know, shorter VODs. You can turn it into a vertical video. You can turn it into an audio or a video podcast, or both. You can, as John said, transcribe it and turn that into a blog post, you know, a newsletter, and, you know, take all of those sound bites, turn it into tweets and accompanied like graphics on Instagram and stuff like that. There's like 100 different ways you can repurpose all of these things. So like, yeah, with this show, we turn it into a podcast. It is audio and a video podcast, and then we do a blog that has the transcription. Ideally, sometimes it takes me a long time to get that aspect of it out, and so much more. Like there's like, I hate to point to Gary Vee, because I think his whole thing is unreasonable for a solo creator to look at without giving themselves a heart attack, because he clearly has a team of people working for him. But you can search for Gary Vee, and it's like one piece of content to 100 pieces of content, and he will give you that long list of, you know, which I gave you just touched on, of things you can do with your content if you're lacking in those ideas. But yeah, again, it's going to be something that is going to take planning and time.
And again, I think that's another good call out. Like the things you could do theoretically and the things that you can do practically without going insane and broke and just burn out completely, they're very different lists. So I just want you to be really careful about that. But I'm gonna do this dangerous thing that I shouldn't do, and I'm gonna try and switch to a different scene that I haven't set up before the show, and hopefully I don't look too ridiculous. But anyway. let's talk about this. I'm just going to show this briefly on the screen, and I want Sam to actually kind of talk about it in more detail because I'm not loving this. I'm a little scared, to be honest. But essentially, YouTube have rolled out this ability to have multiple thumbnails that you can sort of test and compare. And if you go into your video details and click on this test and compare, you can upload up to 3 images to learn which the viewer prefers. They give you a little bit of context about how that works, and you just upload the images and away you go. And the thing I said to Sam during the week, deep breath, everybody, deep breath. The thing I said to Sam during the week was I struggle enough to make a single thumbnail for a video, and now I don't want to make 3 per video. And Sam was like, in fact, why don't you just tell them what you told me?
Oh, I said I don't know how I phrased it exactly, but I was like, well, really the ideal use of this is you make 3, you wait for the results, which can be up to 2 weeks, and it tells you what the winner is. And then you make 2 new ones based on the one that won to fine tune it. And then you continue to do that forever, which this is, what Mr. Beast does. He has over 100 thumbnails generated per video.
And again, another person with a huge team. And I guess for me, like I would rather make 30 videos than 90 thumbnails. And I guess for me, and I appreciate that these on page, these video SEO stuff is potentially quite useful and important, but I actually genuinely don't think it's the best use of my time. I know you've sort of alluded to the fact that you kind of wanted to explore, even offering services related to this, but I just don't, I don't know, like it's something that I think there is value there, but again, I feel like there are so many random people on the internet just offering spicy takes without a lot of data, and I think it just makes me nervous.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I mean, and now that it's out there, like there could be people that just figure out how to gamify this and like destroy their competition simply by doing thumbnail things, but not really. But I was going to say not really having great content. They would still have to have good content, because that's the whole thing is like you get the eyeballs and it's still creating that those test results based on watch time. So if people are clicking through and not really getting the video they're expecting, they're going to click away, and you're going to get zero bad watch time. Which there'll still be a winner to your thumbnail test and compare, but the data will be inconclusive. And it actually, I think, has some kind of thing on there that's going to say, instead of winner, it'll just say preferred because the data was inconclusive. What is Saeed's thing?
Saeed's got this great comment. I think you also need a large sample size for the for a valid A/B test. Having 12 followers probably won't really give you any insight.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and that is when you will most likely see it come up as preferred, which, it basically YouTube says that they will run the test until there's a definitive winner or up to 2 weeks, at which point it will just kind of declare the test is over. We don't have enough information. This is the one that we think is preferred. And then, you could do it again. And really the way to utilize this, from everything I've seen from the YouTube team, is that first sort of bunch of 3 thumbnails that you're putting on should be very broad. They should be completely different. And then you take a look at which one wins, and then you hone in and, kind of turn that into the control and do like, but what if the background was blue on this one? What if I change the font to Gothic, and like you start to make sort of minute changes until you can then be like, okay, these are all the things that really worked. I'm going to see if that replicates on another video. And if that does, I now have sort of a template of what thumbnails should look like going forward. Still should run those tests to see how things go crazy. The thing that I thought of that nobody's really talked about yet is I think there's a way to, once you've kind of created that knowledge base of like, these are my preferred colors and fonts for my audience and things like that, and they like to see either my face or not my face or whatever it is. In the case of Mr. Beast, it was like, not this, but this, with the, like, not the giant open mouth, but the closed mouth did a lot better for him. So, you know, once you've got sort of those inklings of things, I think there's a way to utilize this to hop on, you know, like evergreen things like holidays and trends. You know, it's not going to be an open door for that. It depends on the content, obviously, but I think there is potentially that ability to then have those sort of seasonal thumbnails that you can drop in and be like, oh, now I've got a pumpkin over here. As long as, you know, as long as it's not completely out of the blue, you know.
And Business Growth Ready is noting that you've been able to do this for many years on TubeBuddy. So, I mean, there have been ways of doing it, even just sort of arbitrarily changing the thumbnail from time to time. It's perhaps not as scientific, but I mean, there are ways of doing it. But again, I don't know. I just, if you don't have a large team, I kind of don't feel like it is the place I would put all my time and energy in, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's either going to be time or money. Like, you could make thumbnails yourself, which you can do relatively quickly in like a Canva or a Photoshop if you have a few sort of templates that you're going with. Or you could just, you know, drop $5 to $20 on Fiverr and have somebody else do it. But you still have to spend sort of a little bit of time to be like, this is what I want. This is how you do it. These are the fonts and the, you know, like, once you've done it a few times and kind of created that style guide for your thumbnails, I think that's when you can outsource it to Fiverr.
But even then, I kind of wonder if there isn't a point at which people will get tired of seeing even that, you know.
Potentially.
You know, I imagine there's probably a time you'll need to mix it up. But anyway, that's probably a therapy session for a whole another time. So we'll come back and we'll talk about the opportunities we have in terms of actually resurfacing existing content.
If you've been watching us for a while, or this is your first time and you're thinking, Sam, John, this is great stuff, but I'm wearing a lot of hats already and I don't need to add this to my list of things that I'm doing, but I really want to live stream, I've got you covered. I've been a freelance technical director and stream operator for 20 years, and I can help you either with one-on-one counseling, setups of shows, or even run your whole show for you. Get in touch with me, samproof@gmail.com, or find out more at samproof.tv. I missed that background.
It's a great background. It's funny. I was almost going to suggest that you take a photo of that background and like without yourself in it, and I would just green screen it behind me as well, and we could have a bit of fun with that. But anyway, this is the Video and Live Streaming Show. Today we're talking all about content repurposing, and I think finally I kind of want to touch on resurfacing content, and I think the thing I need to mention first is content, you know, it has different shelf lives on different platforms, and there are some places, particularly with those short form videos, that often whatever it's going to do in terms of views will happen in a day or two tops. And there are other places that are destinations that potentially can, you know, things can live longer, you can explore deeper, you can have longer form content. So in some ways, and it's one of those things I need to revisit constantly is, you know, if I feel like a video isn't getting the attention it deserves, often the easiest thing I can do is just tweet about it or share it on social media. Yeah. And I know that sounds so boring and potentially quite obvious, but you do need to keep resurfacing these kinds of things because social media is pretty fickle. People aren't always on the platforms. They're not always going to see everything that you post. So I guess, and to that extent, and I haven't done a lot of this, but it feels like there are certain platforms where you could just upload the same content every month and potentially get some benefit from it if it is still relevant to people. So I guess, Sam, like, what do you think in terms of, you know, the shelf life of different destinations, and what would you prioritize, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a question that everyone has to really ask and analyze for themselves. Like, personally, YouTube is always going to be sort of my go-to. Like, this is, I think, the biggest attention platform that I will the platform I'll put the most attention on. God, talking is not easy. Words hard. Just because it is just such a long-term destination, and it has like the second biggest search engine and all that kind of stuff. But within that, you have so many different kinds of content just on YouTube. So like you can repurpose the same content on YouTube 5 different. You got the live stream, you got like the VODs, the long form VODs, you got the YouTube shorts, you have podcasts now as a tab, and the community page where you can put posts and stuff. There's probably something I'm completely forgetting about, but yeah, like there's enough stuff there that you can just keep reutilizing things on YouTube time and time again without actually reposting the same video to the same, like you don't want to do the same short in the same place, which I think if you're going to do it, shorts might be the place where you can get away with reposting the same video. But like, I don't think it's worth reposting the same VOD. Like you wouldn't want to put the same long form video out there. You just want to play around with those other tools to sort of convince the YouTube algorithm that it is a good video. You do want to play with the thumbnail tool at that point, or just spread it on social media or throw it into your community tab if you start to actually get some views there. But yeah, shorts, I think, is the one place where you can get away with reposting content and getting completely new eyeballs, because it's almost always 95% completely unknown, viewers, like not return viewers. And similarly, I think TikTok, you could probably get away with doing that as well. I've definitely done sort of that with like using the same video and remixing it with different sounds and stuff like that. I've never just flat out put the same video up. Maybe. I actually may have. I know I got to the point where, we had Samantha Bell come on to the podcast. She was our first guest, and she is very informative. So there were some very seasonal things related to kitten season and what to do when you find a cat outside. And just before things went south here, I was actually planning on just flat out reposting that content, which I had posted a year ago. And I think, it's a vertical format. So I think straight out doing that with that amount of space between it is fine. But yeah.
And again, I guess, you have all these potential options, and like, just don't overwhelm yourself, I think is my message. But I want to come back to the community tab in particular, because it is such a great place to just go look in your archive and go, what's a video that, was maybe from 6 months ago that's still relevant, that maybe my new subscribers haven't seen, and just sort of post something about that, add a little bit of text, resurface it in that way. I guess the other thing too, and I didn't love the idea of this when it first came out, but one of the things that you can actually add to your profile, it's basically a setting, and this is just the Learn Live Streaming channel on YouTube, is this For You section. And basically, if you go into your settings, you can turn it on or off. You can't really adjust where it appears. I don't know if you can or not, but
no, I think it always is the first carousel.
Yeah. So I guess the thing about this, I didn't love the idea of it because I like to just collate things on my own profile myself. But the thing I found really interesting once I started going to other people's profiles is it did surface older stuff I'd never seen that I was interested in. So I guess, I'd probably encourage you to turn that one on if you haven't already. You can sort of see I have some templates for thumbnails, and thumbnails are going to be the bane of my existence moving forward. But anyway, we won't worry about that too much. But certainly, turn that one on. But sometimes, do you have some content? Is there a new social media platform that you haven't uploaded that content to? Maybe it becomes the hot new thing. You can, if you've got your files somewhere, if you've got your thumbnails, captioning resources somewhere that are ready to go, there are all kinds of ways of repurposing that. And I guess the thing Sam said about the live stream is you can kind of go live and you can just go, okay, that's done and move on, or you can repurpose it, or you can even just resurface it, like just post about it every couple of months or so on different platforms. And I know there's a lot of nuance between different platforms, and we're not going to really have time to dig into all of that today, but I just wanted to sort of float that as an idea, because sometimes, and it's, I've said it already, but I'll say it again. Sometimes it's just, you just need to repost it. You just need to say, here's the video. This is what it's about. Here's the link. Go watch it. And the more times you sort of put that out into the world, the more likely it is that someone will actually see it. Saeed's got a great question. Would you ever delete a video that didn't perform at all if you create an updated version of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really depends on the time frame between the original video and the reposted video. Like if you post it and 48 hours later you're like, well, that thing got 3 views, I'm just going to do it again and see what happens, then yes, absolutely hide that, delete that original video, because it'll be basically back to back. It would look weird, for anyone who goes to your channel page or your profile page, whatever it is. If it's 6 months down the line, who cares? Like at that point, maybe not. It depends. I think at that point, it really depends on what the platform is. If it's like a TikTok or a YouTube Shorts, then no, I wouldn't delete it at that point. If it was a YouTube VOD, like a long form VOD, I might actually like just unlist the original one that didn't do well. There's a point where if you post the same video on YouTube, depending on what's happening, how big your account is and stuff, you could copyright stuff like against yourself, where it'd be like, this has already been posted, which it actually flat out might not let you repost that VOD. But as a short, I'm almost positive it will. If it's like an Instagram reel, that again depends, I think, based on time, because how far down your page until they see it again. But so in general, as long as it's not 2 scrolls down and you see it again, I'd be fine to leave it.
And I guess as a general rule, I probably wouldn't delete it from YouTube. I'd probably unlist it or make it private. But I guess the other thing too is if that video is actually getting a lot of traction, but you've updated it for other reasons, maybe there have been updates, maybe there have been news, leave it there, put some sort of card at the beginning of it to say, watch this new version of it over here. But I guess the other thing too, like as Sam said, it does very much depend on the platform. And I posted something late at night, Australian time, and it got no traction at all. And the next day I just deleted it and I posted it again, and people started commenting on liking it. So sometimes, you just have a go and see what happens. There are gurus that'll tell you all kinds of things about different algorithms. I don't know how much they know. I think a lot of life is just trying stuff out and seeing where you end up. But that is certainly something to keep in mind.
I do like that idea of if the first video is actually somewhat working and you just want to test something, almost an A/B video test, like literally make a minute change and say like, blah, 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 video remastered, or just something to make it sound like I obviously reposted this, and then linking back to the original. I think that's a great idea.
Nice. I just want to go back to this comment about A/B testing, because I thought it was hilarious. Business Growth Ready writes, you could actually no, sorry, the next one. Sometimes you just got to roll the dice. We did not A/B test our partners, or did we? As someone who's really single, I did not. And Saeed said maybe we can A/B test which background Sam could use moving forward. So that's another thing we could do. So anyway, this has been the video and live streaming show. I guess as we begin to wrap up, Sam, where can people go to learn more about you, what's your content, and all that good stuff, as I madly scroll to the top of my selections here?
You can find me at samproof.tv, and in the top left corner, you'll find links to all of my socials. And I'm probably going to be doing a lot of live streaming on our Twitch and YouTube channel this coming few weeks while the kids are home and don't have any kind of summer camp or anything like that. So look out for that. And if you didn't get enough cats, The Cute Avalanche live stream is live. It is replaying featured clips since we don't currently have Fosters in our apartment and may not be able to. We'll see. But yeah, you can help support the cause over there while we figure out what the future holds for us.
Nice. And if you want to check out anything I'm up to, you can head over to johnlacey.com. Got a whole bunch of articles on the podcast and social links at the bottom of all those pages. I do want to say happy birthday to Saeed, who had a birthday during the week. I kind of want to tease him about being an old man, but he's actually younger than me, which is really annoying. But I hope you had a good week. And I'll talk to you very, very soon, I'm sure. But thank you for joining us, everybody. Just a reminder, if there are particular things that you would like to hear about or to see us explore in the future, let us know wherever you happen to be watching this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's another action that if you don't ask people to do, it doesn't always occur to them. So let me just put that banner up as well. But yes, if you've got any ideas that you'd like us to explore, I know Sam... you did some work, and we'll talk about this probably in its own show, with chatbot commands and all kinds of weird, wonderful techie stuff, which I know nothing about, and I'm kind of really intrigued by all of that. So we might need to pick that up in a future show. But thank you everybody for joining us today, and have a great week. Well, we should be back roughly the same time next week. So take care and have a good time.